So, without further ado, I'm going to, today we have Dr. Ng Wai Chong here to share with us on understanding the Four Noble Truths through meditation. So, before I hand over the mic to Dr. Ng, this is a short bio about him. Dr. Ng Wai Chong is a medical doctor and founder and CEO of a social enterprise providing clinical and developmental services for aging-related cause. He has been an active volunteer with the NUS Medical Dhamma Circle since 1988 and is the Vice President of Cakkavala Meditation Center. He studies the Dhamma and meditation under Sayalay Dipankara, a disciple of the Venerable Pa Auk Sayadaw. So let us invite Dr. Ng to give us a guided meditation followed by a Dhamma talk. Thank you very much, Dr. Ng.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I understand today is we're dedicating the service to Ajahn Brahm's 50th year of Vasa. So although I remember he famously said that he doesn't need our merits, but we need to dedicate. So let us dedicate all the merits we've accumulated throughout our lives in the practice of Sila, Dana, and Bhavana meditation. Maybe dedicate as the whole of the Buddhist fellowship towards his health and long life in celebration of the 50th year of Ajahn Brahm's, our beloved teacher's Vasa. Okay. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So today we will do a short meditation first, and then I will talk about meditation in order to understand the Four Noble Truths. Okay. Okay, so many of you have practiced before. If you have an object of your familiarity, you can carry on. Otherwise, you can follow my guidance. And we'll practice Anapanasati. And then we will practice Metta as well. So let us sit upright. Okay. And we begin by relaxing ourselves first, starting with the body. Okay. Upright, without being tense, just very comfortable, very confident. And let us feel the raw sensations of our scalp at the top of our head. Without using the eyes or the ears, we just know the sensation, the raw sensation that is very primitive, wordless, languageless. And that is the realm of meditation, feeling raw sensations. Let us pay more attention on the flowing nature of the skin and the muscles on our scalp. And let us feel the fluidity, the flowing, feel it down our sides of the head to the temples. For sometimes the head is tensed unconsciously. So feel the softness and the flowing of the muscles in front at our forehead as well, between the eyebrows and around the eyes. Relaxing as we release the tension of the muscles around the eyes, flowing down to our cheeks and our faces, around our mouth, and also at the sides and the back as well, down to our necks. Feeling all the muscles relaxing, releasing the tension built up over the weeks. To our shoulders, allowing the neck to adjust itself to its most natural, comfortable position. Just enough tone to be upright. Nothing more, and nothing less. Feeling the muscles flowing down to our arms, allowing the arms to hang at the sides by their own weights. Feel the muscles flowing down to the elbows, to the forearms and the wrists, the hands, all the way to the fingertips, relaxing, for they are currently not needed, so let them rest. And feel the muscles on our chest flowing down, releasing its grip, such that the rib breathe naturally by this natural reflex that all of us are born with. This is freedom, allowing the muscles to flow at the back as well, releasing all its grasp and control all the way to the abdomen. Allowing all the organs in the abdomen to rest, one on top of the other, like cushions stacked in a closet, quietly, peacefully resting. And the muscles around our pelvis, the buttocks, the thighs, release all the tension. Allow the whole body to anchor and plaster down. And the muscles on the thighs flowing to the knees and the calves, all the way to the feet. Allowing the muscles to melt and flow as if they are dripping off the bones to the floor, exposing the skeleton. For we are all but skeletons, clothed in muscles and skin, and then colorful clothes and different kinds of hairstyles. Just skeletons, carrying organs for breathing, for blood circulation to distribute the oxygen, and organs for digesting food, so that there is energy to move around, to commit karma, good and not so good. Such is this skeleton. Similarly for the mind, at the base of our hearts, let us feel the mind soft like water at the base of our hearts. Like water, when all the winds and breezes have stopped, it becomes still and clear when all the sediments have settled to the base. When the water is still, like a mirror lake, it reflects without controlling, without participating, without judging, only observing and learning. Such is the mind of a meditator, forever a disciple, observing and learning from the whole universe of mind and matter. Always a disciple. And when the mind is still, it is clear and we can see the depth of the mind and matter and their workings in accordance to the laws. With the body and mind soft and relaxed, let us bring the mind to our breath. The breath is simply the in-breath and out-breath in front of the nostrils, above the upper lip. The meditator is like a guard of a castle door, observing everyone that goes in and out without following anyone into the castle or out into open space. The mind guards the breath, the in-breath and the out-breath, observing without controlling, without participating, without judging. In-breath, we know it's an in-breath. Out-breath, we know it's an out-breath. Sometimes the breath is longer in duration. Sometimes it is shorter. Let us know that and be sure of it, moment to moment, allowing the mind to stay with the breath like a shadow following a person in front of the nostrils, above the upper lip. Throughout its course, from the beginning of each in-breath to the middle and the end, and the beginning of each out-breath, middle and the end. Letting go of everything else, fully commit to the breath. When the mind is tense, we let go. When the mind is too relaxed, we ask ourselves, where's the breath? Where's the mind? And reassert the effort to know the breath continuously. When the mind is very calm, the breath becomes subtle. But because of wisdom, we know the breath is there, and we stay with the breath, such that the mind and the breath is not separate. When the sense of brightness stay with the breath, ignore everything else. Stay with the breath continuously, balancing the mind, not too laxed, not too tight, always learning respectfully. For the in and out breath is our conduit to the triple gem. Let us stay with the breath quietly. with a mind peaceful and pure, mindful, let us change the object and have a vision of ourselves seated here in this hall. Have a vision. You may call it an imagination of ourselves. Feel grateful for this person here, taking time to practice the Dhamma, and tell ourselves, may I be free from danger, be safe. Really mean every word, allowing every cell to feel and accept the kindness. For each cell deserves every bit of loving kindness in the world. May I be free from mental suffering, be free from physical suffering. May I be well and happy, completely accept the kindness we have for ourselves thoroughly. And let the mind broaden its scope to embrace all our friends in the Buddhist fellowship. May all my friends here be free from danger, be safe, be free from mental suffering, be free from physical suffering, and be well and happy. Gently bring the mind back to the body, and at our own time we may open our eyes. During the last 1 to 2 years, starting with the 4 elements, and then we did 32 parts of the body until we practiced mindfulness on the skeleton, and then we did kasina. I didn't have time to do one kasina after another. I just did one of the kasinas, the color kasina. And then we went on to practice the other meditation, from the Buddha Nusati to Dhamma Nusati to Sangha Nusati. And then Sila, Dana, and Deva, we combine into one. Then after that, last month, I shared about the Abhidhamma, a very quick review, with a main message that if we want to practice Vipassana, we need to understand ultimate realities and how certain things are conventional realities, which is important for the practice of virtues and generosity. Even for samatha practice, the breath is a concept. Loving kindness, beings are concept. Even color kasina, while color can be an ultimate reality, but the color kasina is a concept. But concept, I mentioned 2 weeks ago, that is subject to the conventions of the day, the civilizations that we operate in, the culture, the society. Like if you are a man compared with, say, a Singaporean or somebody in China, is different. And what more, in the Buddha's teachings, we want to understand truth that is universal. So a dog world and the human world is different. So concepts and conventions are restricted to what realm you're born in, whereas ultimate reality is irregardless. Whether you're a deva, human, animals, hell being, Singaporean, China, from Chinese, American, they are the same. So that was the purpose of sharing about the Abhidhamma, and today we will apply here to understand the Four Noble Truths through meditation. So the Four Noble Truths is very well known, I'm sure. And if you were to go back to the Buddha's teachings in the Nikaya, the Suttanta, it was first propounded in the first teachings immediately after he attained to enlightenment, and he went to the Deer Park and met his 5 disciples. And that's when he said that the noble truth of suffering, birth is suffering and so on, but he said, in brief, the 5 aggregates of subject to clinging are suffering. I'm using Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. And then he mentioned that the first noble truth of dukkha has to be understood. Okay? And then when he talked about the second noble truth, he said, it is the truth of the origin of suffering, which is craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, and craving for extermination. And he said that this truth of the origin of suffering has to be abandoned. And the third truth is the cessation of suffering, which is the fading away and cessation of the same craving. And this has to be realized. And the fourth truth is the truth leading to the path leading to the cessation of suffering, and that is the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, my apologies for the very small print, but you can just focus on what I say. So for those of you who are at home watching the video, or in the future watching YouTube, you can actually study and where the sources. Sources is interesting. I realized that when I practice in Myanmar and so on, we don't read, we just listen to the teacher. But the tradition that many of us are here are very academic. We go to schools, we study, and whenever we say something, we like to reference, which is a good thing too, but don't overdo. So today I'm referencing some of the suttas, but I'll be sharing how we were taught in retreats. So the first noble truth need to be understood. The question is, how does one understand the 5 aggregates? It's you can study all until the cows come home. The 5 aggregates, what is it? And then you can reference here and there, and you can interpret using philosophy, etymology, epistemology, linguistics, and so on. But do you really understand the 5 aggregates? So how do we understand the 5 aggregates? And how does one abandon craving? We know craving is a cause of suffering. Can you abandon? Yeah, I just let go. I mean, if it's so easy to say, all of us are enlightened already, right? So even though we know greed, attachment, craving is the origin of suffering, to abandon, how does one do that? Really, practically, ultimately, especially in the face of aging, sickness, and death. And sickness is not just sickness with one disease or the other disease. Sickness experienced as a disability to do things that you find meaningful, that makes your life meaningful. So that is difficult. Realization of the cessation. How do one realize the end of craving? Nibbana. Frequently when we ask a teacher, what is Nibbana? Even the Buddha described it in negative terms. You have to realize. And then how does one develop the Noble Eightfold Path? Okay, I have I think about 40 over slides. I have to hurry a little bit so that we can leave some time for discussion. So if you look at the suttas again, I'm using the academic frame of mind, referencing here and there. It's from the Anguttara Nikaya, Mahanama Sutta. The Buddha told his cousin, what do you do as a layperson? You have faith, virtue, generosity, and you practice, you develop your wisdom. And in wisdom, he further classified it. You can develop wisdom through listening to the good Dhamma. You retain in the mind the teachings heard and carefully examine their teaching. Meaning, that means you listen, you contemplate, and you put it into practice according to the Dhamma. So this has a parallel in the Surangama Sutra, which is in the Mahayana text. Those of you who understand Chinese, you know there's frequently the teachers who talk about 闻思修 闻所成慧, 思所成慧, 修所成慧. You can develop wisdom by listening, by contemplating, and by practice. And in the Nikaya tradition, this is also repeated by Venerable Sariputta in Digha Nikaya called the Sangiti Sutta. There are 3 wisdom. So listening, contemplating, and then putting into practice. The threefold training, forget about reading here, but we also hear a lot about the threefold training, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. The source is in the Anguttara Nikaya. And in the Majjhima Nikaya, it was described, if I remember correctly, was Venerable Dhammadinna, who said that the Eightfold Path can be included in the threefold training. The right action, right speech, and right livelihood is included in the training of Sila. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration is included in the training of higher mind, of mind. Right view and right thought is in the training of the third training of wisdom. So the 3 training and the Eightfold Path are connected. And in one of the very interesting sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, Venerable Sariputta heard the Buddha talk about a very well-trained monk. Venerable Sariputta, if you read his biography, he's very humble. He's very kind. He's always the last to go for the alms round because he would check all the kutis that all the monks have left. Nobody is sick. And then he'll make sure everything is clear. In the morning, he'll be the one sweeping the floor. And then when any monks is sick, he'll be the one, he'll be the nurse, to take care of them. So Venerable Sariputta heard about the Buddha talking about another disciple who is full of wisdom. Then he has this mudita feeling, very happy. And he went to meet him. And in between the conversation, the Arahant disciple explained the 7 stages of purification as one after the other in a systematic way. First, you purify virtue. Based on pure virtue, you purify the mind. Based on purification of mind, you purify your view. Based on purification of view, you purify by overcoming doubt. And then you purify by knowledge and vision of what is path and what is not the path. And purify by knowledge of wisdom of the way and knowledge and vision. Okay, this is the Ratha Vinita Sutta, which is the basis of the subsequent work by Venerable Buddha Ghosha, Visuddhimagga. So I summarize all these into this graph. So if, as a layperson, we want to practice, so if you heed the Buddha's advice in the Mahanama Sutta, we develop our faith, our virtue, our generosity, as well as our wisdom. How to develop wisdom? We listen to the Dhamma, we contemplate on the Dhamma, and we put the Dhamma into practice. How do you put into practice? You keep the precepts so that you practice the 3 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path of morality. With that as a foundation, you practice samatha so that you develop concentration, which is, or otherwise known as samadhi. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. With that as a foundation, we practice vipassana and develop the factors of right view and right thought. And these coincide with the 7 purifications. And today, we'll focus on these 2 because our topic is about meditation to understand the 4 Noble Truths, samatha and vipassana. So you will see that I connect this with my previous talk on Abhidhamma. the faith, virtues, generosity, and the large part of wisdom, when we listen and we contemplate, we are dealing with conventional reality. We conceptualize, we argue, we think about it. So these are all conceptuals. So in samatha, we are also using concept, but only after, when the mind has samadhi, we like to penetrate ultimate reality, because we want to understand the First Noble Truth of the 5 aggregates. How do you understand 5 aggregates? It cannot be by linguistics, by epistemology, by philosophy. No, you have to really penetrate and understand into the realm of the wordless and conceptualizationless. Okay. So the Buddha's meditation, if you read the suttas, in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha explained the samatha practitioner need to learn from the vipassana practitioner. The vipassana practitioner need to learn from the samatha practitioner. So in the scripture, the Buddha mentioned these two a lot, but he never defined vipassana. So we know samatha meditation from the scripture as well as from various commentarial texts. So here I reference Bhikkhu Bodhi's comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma. He explained what is samatha meditation. It is the meditation in which the wavering and trepidation of the mind is brought to an end, culminating in one-pointedness of the mind with samadhi as its results. And in the 7 purification, this is the purification of the mind. In the 3-4 training, it is a training of the higher mind. And in Satya Vibhanga, the Buddha explained, and also in many parts, samatha is culminating in the right concentration with jhana as a guidepost. So modern day teacher, so my teacher Sayalay Dipankara likened samatha and samadhi in like a microscope. You want to see ultimate realities, you need a microscope, and that is samatha. And Ajahn Brahm, in his, also a very famous story of his, one day when the bus to the hill has broken down, he had to walk. So he has been going through this route so often, but once he started to walk, he realized the details of the plants, the trees, and the leaves, the veins on the leaves. So if you need to understand in details, you need to have the practice of samatha. So in the last few months, we have talked about the various samatha objects. So this is compiled by commentators such as Buddha Gosha, although it is found throughout the Nikaya. But Nikaya, you need to understand everything. Otherwise, you have to read everything. If you were to be somebody who read all the Suttanta texts from Digha Nikaya all the way to Khuddaka Nikaya, and you were to create a categories, okay, it will be this 40 meditation object. So the 10 kasinas, earth, water, fire, air, kasina. Blue kasina sometimes is translated as brown kasina, okay, and yellow, red, and white. Earth is using the earth, not the earth element of 34 elements, but you go to the field, you look for a bald patch, you remove all the large gravels and the dead leaves. That's just earth. And then just use your mind to take a photograph. I'm not using a handphone. And then you just practice on the earth and let it spread in 3 dimensions. Water is you go to a body of water, or you can take a basin, maybe a black or gray basin. You can also use red, but you just take the water and not the red color, and let the water spread in 3D. Or in the forest that we meditate in, there's well. So the teacher will ask us to look at the well, to look at the water. Fire is fire, any fire. A bonfire, fire that is very grand, that gives you joy. Happiness is a proximate cause for concentration. So whatever that gives you joy, take that as an object. Air is actually wind. Like this morning, there was a lot of wind. You perceive the wind, colorless, right? But just take it as a concept and spread throughout the 3-dimensional universe. Yellow, red, white, space. Okay, space. Light. Piercing light through the leaf. Okay, use that and do kasina. And then 10 kinds of powerfulness is, you don't get to practice so much. But I had the good fortune of being a medical student, forensic pathology with Professor 𝐶𝐲 Cheng, and then there was once we had a dead body of a old man who hanged himself, and we saw that body, and I used that as an object when I was practicing the corpse. But in the ancient time, especially the Buddha's time, they leave dead bodies out in the woods, especially for the people who are poor. Maybe they don't cremate it. Then you can see different stages of decomposition. The 10 collections, we just covered it. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, morality, generosity, devas. Peace is the peace of Nibbana. Death, we also did mindfulness on death. The body is actually the 32 parts, and then breath. We just done breath just now. And then the four immeasurables, which is metta, karuna, mudita, and equanimity. We also did that one after another. And the loathsomeness of food we didn't do because I've never practiced and also never been taught. But it is a perception that food, while you enjoy food, but you need to know, all this food is brought together by so many people flying, people through shipping, people growing, and then they have to chop, and then they have to cut. Some people have to grow it, and then you cook it, and then you put some garnishes, and then you eat it, and then it become like a gruel, and then it pass out as feces. So you just look at it, it's so troublesome, it's so meaningless, it is so vain, it is so don't know what, so unfriendly to the environment, okay? So everything. So that is the loathsomeness of processed food. But even unprocessed food is also very troublesome. So the loathsomeness. And then we did 4 elements. So just now we did a little bit. When you feel the raw sensations, you may feel hardness, vibrations, you may feel a bit of stiffness, you may feel some congealing, you can feel some flowing. So those are the 4 elements. Same, wordless. I can talk about water, fire, and wind, but you can anyhow interpret earth, water, fire, and wind. But you need to feel it without the language. That is 4 elements. And then the immaterial states, we didn't talk about it because you need to practice kasina until the 4th jhana. Then then you emerge from it, the kasina is throughout the whole universe, and that's when you can begin with looking for the space between the particles, and that's when you can do infinite space. So that one, we didn't do. Next time, if there's opportunity, we can discuss. So the samatha meditation, there are signposts to the progress. So just now when we practice anapanasati, the breath, in and out breath, is your parikamma nimitta, the preparatory sign. You see, if you understand the mechanism of mental phenomenon, the mind always have an object. Okay? So it is continuous wholesome mind on an object. That is the practice of samadhi. That is samadhi. When the mind is continuously wholesome, no break of bhavanga, if you remember what I mentioned 2 weeks ago, that is samadhi. So there must be an object. But in order to have that continuous mind, this object needs to be stable. When the in and out breath is not stable, it's just this concept. You can't see breath, and the sensation is also not the breath. But it is through the sensation we know the breath. So this breath, this thing called breath, we just stay with it. That is the preparatory sign. It is not easy to understand if I analyze it like that. It requires a bit of wisdom. Wisdom is intuitive. It's directly knowing this is breath. So when you know this in and out breath, without analyzing too much, that is the parikamma nimitta. And then when your mind have a hang of it, the mind starts to have this brightness. Sometimes you perceive like a color, like a yellow color, red color. That's just perception. This brightness is very universal. People who have a hang of this breath, in and out breath, they'll get this feeling of brightness. This brightness are also nothing special. They are just a sign that you're on the right track. But let them go. Don't need to feel proud or what. Just stay with the in and out breath. And gradually, when the mind becomes... The breath meditation is very interesting. The rest of meditation, the more you have concentration, the more clear they are. For breath, the more you have concentration, the mind becomes even calmer, the breath becomes even less clear, more subtle. So when the breath becomes very subtle, you're on the right track. So you start to see light and the mind becomes really, really calm. And then gradually you don't see the breath, you just need to increase your mindfulness, similar to listening to a bell being struck. At the faint side, you need to increase your mindfulness on hearing in order to hear the faint. Same for the breath. When the breath becomes very mild, very calm, you need to raise your level of mindfulness to know it. So you ignore the light and the color. And when you continue with this, the light becomes very, very bright, brighter and brighter until, and you still ignore, don't go to the light yet, because once you go to the light, you forget the breath, this light also faded. Huh? So you continue with the breath until the light and the breath is united. And you still stay with the breath until the light and the breath becomes the paticabhaganimitta. These are words. Okay, you can ignore the Pali terms. You can just listen to what I say. So the breath and the light become united, and the mind is also here. The body is, you don't care anymore because you're totally engrossed. You totally let go, let go, let go, let go. And then just stay with that. And the light becomes the breath and the mind, and it becomes very brilliant, like a morning star. Sometimes it's like a flicker here, and then there's something transparent in the inside. Transparent as in you can see through, but you cannot see through. It's just a feeling, a perception that it's like a diamond. Huh? So you just stay with that. And the mind and the breath and the light just stay together, and the mind is very centered, concentrated, still, and taut. Okay? So the mind is just stay with that. And you don't care whether is it jhana. Okay? If you care whether is it jhana, that is conceit. Okay? That's craving. So you don't care. You just stay with it. Humble, always like a disciple. And then you get a feeling like a skilled bathman kneading the soap powder, which has sprinkled with water, forms from it in a metal dish, a soft lump, so that the ball of soap powder becomes one oleaginous mass bound with oil so that nothing escapes. So this monk suffuses, drenches, fills and irradiates his body so that no spot remain untouched. So the mind and the breath and this very bright diamond just become together. So it is still and taut. Okay? And that is how in the Samalapala Sutta, the Buddha used this as an analogy. And we don't care and we don't know. And the teacher will tell us to check the mind base. And you see that it is reflected here. And you need to examine a few things on the mind. Do you have this thinking of the mind keeps striking on it? Does the mind cling on to it? Do you have this elevation feeling and liking feeling and this very peaceful feeling? Do you have this stillness? These are the 5 jhana factors. And then if there is, okay, make a determination of mastery. So you go there, you can absorb as quickly as you like. Maybe 1 minute means 1 minute, 1 second means 1 second. You stay for 30 minutes and 30 minutes automatically you drop out of it. Okay, try again for 2 hours. Then you just stay there for 2 hours. 2 hours later, automatically drop out without using the clock. And then you check easily the jhana factors, and then that's when you can go on to the next stage, which the teacher will tell you. Reflect that this elevation, this striking and this clinging with the thinking mind is distracting. The next level without that is even more sublime. Then you just go there again, you just meditate onto the same breath and the same nimitta, and then you let go of this thinking and this clinging, this sustained thinking mind, and the mind rise into second jhana. Description is this: it's like a lake fed by a spring with no inflow from east, west, north or south, where the rain god sends moderate showers from time to time. So there's water welling from below, mingling with the cool water. Fill and irradiate the cool water so that no part of the water is untouched by it. So this is like a lake. And there are 3 jhana factors: this elation, this bliss, and this stillness. And then same process, you reflect that this joy, this elation is distracting, you like to attain to a state without this elation. And then you sink into this feeling like a lotus deep in the water. No part of it is not perfused by the water. And it is only very, very peaceful feeling with stillness. And that is the third jhana. And then you reflect that this peaceful feeling is also a disturbance. And then you enter into this and let go of the peaceful feeling, and the mind seems to be completely stuck, frozen in an iceberg. Or in this description, it's like a person sit wrapped from the head to the foot with the right garment so that no part of it is untouched. So this is the analogy of the fourth jhana. So with that, the mind is very bright. And the brightness is not the one that is very brilliant or sharp. It is very clear, almost transparent. Itself is very good. Okay, it is a blissful here, abiding here and now. Some people would just like to practice this for a long, long time. But we need to know the main purpose is the second point here. We practice this kind of deep samadhi so that we can see things correctly. Bhikkhus develop concentration. A bhikkhu who is concentrated understands correctly. Understand what? Understands the five aggregates and their causes. So, of course, some people would like to develop psychic power. Some people like to reborn in the Brahma realms. And if for those who have attained to Anagami or Arahant, they can practice this samadhi and until all the way to the eighth jhana, which is the immaterial, neither perception or non-perception, and reflecting on the mentality of that mind and attain to the fruition consciousness, and that's when they can attain to the cessation, the Nirodha Samapatti. But for us, for the rest of us, the second point is why we are practicing samadhi. So now I stop at this clear, invisible clarity that is inside and outside. But the mind is very free, can go anywhere it wants. Okay, so using this as a tool, we practice vipassana. Vipassana, you can't find the definition in the Suttanta, but it is mentioned many times. Okay, so the only definition is found in Attha Salini, which is the commentary text to the one of the books, Dhamma Sangani, if I am correct, Dhamma Sangani, of Abhidhamma. It is defined as seeing ultimate realities, the conditioned one. Ultimate reality, there are conditioned one and the unconditioned. The unconditioned is Nibbana. So we cannot use Nibbana for Vipassana. We use the other conditioned ultimate reality. That's when the knowledge of Abhidhamma is important. The Rupa, the Nama. Nama, you have the feeling, perceptions, volitional formations, and your Vijnana, the consciousness. So we have to see them in many ways. See them as impermanent suffering non-self. So there are 11 ways described in a few suttas in the Suttanta text, but the most famous one is the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. So when we want to practice vipassana, we need to get the ingredients of vipassana. So based on the definition, you need to understand five aggregates. Otherwise, how do you practice impermanent suffering non-self of Rupa, of Vedana? And you also need to understand their causes, and also in 11 ways. So how do we understand them? It is based on samadhi. So based on the deep samadhi that we have, and this very clear clarity, this transparent clarity, that we observe the material phenomenon and the mental phenomenon. So if you remember, I mentioned 2 weeks ago, if the mind is very, very sharp, and you practice the four elements continuously, it becomes like a transparent block. And you can actually start to see the space, And when you can see the space, everything breaks up into tiny particles. And the tiny particles arise and pass away, almost like what the physicists describe as, actually I don't know, I don't study physics, and that is just concepts as well. They're just like energy packets. And if you study the energies, there's hardness, roughness, heaviness, the wordless energies of earth, water, fire, and wind, as well as color. And then there are different kinds of particles. Some are transparent, some are opaque. And then different organs have got different constitutions of their particles. And then you also study the mind, which I mentioned the last time. Okay, I have some slides, just a reminder. You see that with a deep concentration, you see the world in terms of ultimate realities, consciousness, mental factors, materiality. The Nibbana you don't see yet. Then the material phenomenon, they are all this, and the mental phenomenon is like that. While material phenomenon is particles compact, mental phenomenon is like a stream that looks continuous, but they are not continuous like this. And then each one has got different tastes, like Tom Yum soup. I mentioned 2 weeks ago that I want to go into mental factors, but when Sister Eileen said that, oh, you're supposed to talk about this, okay, then, but those are useful for us practicing samatha. But when you study the mind, each moment has a different taste, like a different soup. Some are very rich, some are very light. Then as you study that, you will come to understand that these are all the whole world is just but this. Everything else is concept, is conventions. The world is only, okay, this, you understand the whole world correctly. Okay, so this is, the first one is the Rohitasa. He's a deva with psychic powers. He has been traversing, before he passed away as a deva, he was a seer. Seer is like a samana, maybe modern day you call them shamans, yogis, he had very deep psychic powers. He could just travel very fast and very far, flying through the sky. Then he came to the Buddha, asked about how to make an end of the world. He had been traveling around the world in the last lives for 100 years and died without finding the end of the world. Now he's a deva and went to Jetavana. The Buddha says, you cannot get to the end of the world by just traveling. Then he said, oh, thank you, Bhante, there is no end of the world. Then the Buddha says, I didn't say there's no end of the world. You cannot get to the end by traveling. The world is but this body. Okay? Then with that talk, Dhamma talk, Rohitasa became enlightened. Later we'll explain, if you have time, why some people listening to Dhamma talk, they can become enlightened, whereas the rest of us need to meditate. Okay, so Rohitasa, by listening to the Buddha, he became fully enlightened by just talking about the world. But for others, you need to understand the world in terms of body and mind. Yet others, we understand the world in terms of materiality, feeling, perception, volitional formation, and consciousness. That's the 5 aggregates. Still other, who is a bit slower, we need to understand 5 aggregates in terms of the 12 ayatanas, the 12 bases. They are the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, heart base. These are material, and their counterpart object. Color, sound, smell, taste, touch of the body, and the heart-based objects are everything else, the mind object, which can be mentality or materiality. Mentality would be all the rest of the feeling, perception, volition, formations, and consciousness. So this is the world. Everything is here. But to many of us who are even slower, then the Buddha taught the 18 dhatus. The 18 dhatus are the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body and heart base, and their counterpart, color, sound, smell, taste, touch, and all the non-material conditioned phenomenons, which is your feeling, perception, all the volitional formations, as well as the various kinds of consciousness. Eye consciousness that arise based on the eye base, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind, the mind door. Okay, so these are all the consciousness that we can actually examine that constitute the whole world. And that is not enough, because according to, I mentioned just now, the definition of vipassana is not just the five aggregates, but also their causes. So when we understand the causes, we have to understand five aggregates and their causes in terms of 3 times: present life, past life, and future lives. And that is the 12 links of dependent origination. So the 6 sense basis is the materiality, and you see, it's ignorance, condition, consciousness, condition, mentality, and materiality. The materiality here and the 6 sense basis is under materiality. Feeling is feeling. And your ignorance, volitional formations, and everything else is your volitional formations. And consciousness is consciousness. The 4 foundations of mindfulness is also the same scheme. Okay? The foundation of body, feeling, mind, and Dhamma, they are all in this scheme of the 5 aggregates. And they are also in the Abhidhamma teaching related to materiality, cetasika, the mental factors, and the consciousness. And then we deepen the insight by seeing in 11 ways. So to the right of your screen is a scripture from Anatta-Lakkhana Sutta, where the Buddha explained form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. So he says, whatever that is past, present, future, gross, subtle, internal, in oneself or external, inferior or superior, far or near, must, with right understanding, how it is be regarded as this is not mine, this is not I, this is not myself. This is vipassana. Okay? It is how you understand the 5 aggregates in these 11 ways, starting with form, feeling, perception, volitional formation, and consciousness. So what we have done so far is, based on samadhi, we penetrate with 4 elements to study how this body is made up by just 4 elements in tiny packets. And the mind is a stream of cittas arising and passing away, both internal and external, because when we spread the light out, everyone is the same. And even the wall and the floor is the same. Even the devas, the animals, is the same. And we will study all these and see them as arising and passing away moment to moment. But that's not enough. Now we want to examine the causation. We have studied the past, present, and the future, but now we want to examine the causation. So this is really the most important, dependent origination. Because the Buddha says, one who sees dependent origination sees the Dhamma, and one who sees the Dhamma sees dependent origination. Without understanding dependent origination, the Buddha says, it is through not understanding, through not penetrating, that this generation has become a tangled skein, a knotted ball of thread, matted as the roots in a bed of reeds, and finds no way out of the round of rebirths, with its states of loss, unhappy destinations, and perditions. Okay? In this very interesting sutta, Tita Yatana Sutta, in the Anguttara Nikaya, okay, you don't have to read, I'll read it for you, but I won't read everything. Yeah? The Buddha explained the 4 noble truths. The first noble truth is the same, the 5 aggregates. The second noble truth he described as, with ignorance, there's volitional formations. With volitional formations, there's consciousness, which is the rebirth linking consciousness, that always come with mind and body, which will have 6 sense bases. When there are 6 sense bases, there'll be contact, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, aging, sickness, and death. Ignorance never eradicated, you continue. This is how he described the second noble truth. And the third noble truth he described as the cessation of ignorance, the cessation of karma, cessation of birth, mentality, mind and matter, 6 sense bases, contact, feeling, perception, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, and so on. So, the second and third noble truth are taught in terms of the 12 links of dependent origination. I'm just trying to emphasize the importance of learning dependent origination in meditation. In the Cakkavala Sutta, okay, the picked house, the Buddha says, without having made the breakthrough in the noble truth of suffering as it really is, the noble truth of the origin of suffering, the noble truth of cessation of suffering, the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering, I will completely make an end of suffering. This is impossible. It just says that without seeing all 4 noble truths, if we are only focused on first noble truth, just, oh, it is impermanent, let go, let go, let go. Not yet. So you need to understand the causation, how they are caused. So how do we practice? Just now we talked about having samadhi as a basis, and then we study material and mental, internal, external, inside and outside, all the way through all the realms. Observe them moment to moment arise and pass away. We need to see the past now. How did they arise? So how do you do that? So what we were taught was, we first offer something to the Buddha or a pagoda or something, making a wish of a rebirth. Even though you're very unwilling, I want to be an arahant. Okay? But truthfully, many of us don't really want to be an arahant. You have to be really, really honest. So you have to make a wish. A lot of us are unconscious in our wish. We just want to live. Okay? We are motivated by many things in this life. Usually, it's always ignorance. Attachment to our families, our lives, our lifestyles, our ability to walk and speak. Sometimes unconsciously, we want to be a man or a woman or a human. We may not form it, but it motivates us in working, in making a living, so that we can eat. Eat for what? So that we can live. Live for what? So that we can continue to see, hear, touch our lifestyles. For what? Because restlessness and boredom and loneliness and unhappiness, we need to feel it so that this void is distracted away. You may not know, but it is there. Okay? We are motivated by these things, so we do all kinds of things. A person who is foolish will lie, will steal, will rob to achieve this. Those who are wise, like those of us in the Buddhist fellowship, we know while we have attachment and ignorance and so on, there are proper ways, you need to have a proper livelihood. You don't steal, you don't lie. When you help others, others will help you. When you give, you will receive. When you practice meditation, your mind can be calm down. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, your stress can calm down. And then you can have more happy feeling. So actually, it's attachment to happy feeling. I mean, it's subconscious. All of us are like that. So when we practice, although we say we want to be arahant, but no, get real, okay? So many of us, okay, so you make an offering and so sometimes you wonder, maybe I should be reborn. Human, very troublesome, have to take PSLE, O-level, and then take exam, gosh. So troublesome, right? Although you like it, but you really reflect on it, Deva better. So you read about Tusita Deva or Tavatimsa Deva, and then Tusita, there are a lot of teachers. Tavatimsa also a lot of teachers. yeah, I want to be an arahant, but not this life. Okay, so maybe next life. So you make a wish to be reborn in that heavenly realm. And then you analyze that mind as if it's an external person. So you see in meditation, go into deep concentration, project the light into that being, which is yourself. Then you analyze the material phenomenon, the mental phenomenon. You check the heart. It's very wholesome. Wow, sadhu, 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 very wholesome. Want to offer the light to the Buddha. So you check, oh, there's a lot of wholesome mind. But you must also check what brought this person to give that offering. Because there's an intention of being reborn in the heavenly realm. There's attachment to the heavenly realm. There's ignorance that a deva is actually a concept, but think deva is real. And a concept, a conventional truth, we mistake it for an ultimate truth. So that was an ignorance, that was a wrong view, that was an attachment, that was clinging to it. There was an aspiration and there was a clinging. And because of that, there's this wholesome karma of offering flower. You analyze like that, just to check the 12 links. And then you recall, one day ago, how were you like? So when the concentration is very pure, the mind is very fast. You recall one day ago, the image of yourself one day ago, wearing that shirt and practicing that meditation was there. Don't need to think, okay? And then you analyze the mind. Then 1 month ago, 2 months ago, 1 year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, all the way to your childhood, to your babyhood, to your mind and body in the mother's womb. So meditate the same way. While meditating like that, you meditate not with no vanity, with not idea of a self. You just meditate only the 5 aggregates, arising and passing away. So all the way to the mind, the first stop moment, how this conception happened, analyze the mind sincerely, humbly, balanced way, arise and pass away. And at one of the moment when the thought process fall, in the space between thought processes called the bhavanga, there will be an image that is very familiar but yet strange. And then that's when you practice a few times, it becomes clearer and clearer. And that is related to the moments of death before this birth. So I explained to you last week that the bhavanga mind, which is a rebirth, which is the same as the mind, the first moment of mind in the mother's womb, is the same taste of tom yam of the mind of the person dying, which is active. And that mind is related to a karma action, either a dana, or keeping the precept, or doing something right with wholesome mind, because we're human. And that's when you can start to explore more and more and more, and then you analyze the good karma of the mind. But you also want to explore further to see what motivated this being from that does these good deeds. And it is always ignorance, craving, and clinging. Because these roots are so deep that all this we continue to do this. And then you start to analyze the causes themselves are but 5 aggregates. So there are 5 methods, 4 methods taught by the Buddha, 1 method taught by Venerable Sariputta. So Venerable Sariputta one is maybe easier. 5 causes, 5 results. The 5 causes are, if you 12 links, you can simplify it into ignorance, craving, clinging, karma, and the karmic force. Okay, these are the 5 causes from the past. Give rise to present result, which is your rebirth linking consciousness, your mentality and materiality, and then they develop into 6 sense spaces and the contact and the feeling. Okay, these 5 causes from past life, present 5 results. And this life, of course, we do many things, all motivated by ignorance, craving, clinging, good karma or bad karma, and the karmic force, result in the 5 results of the future life. And also we look at the past life of the past life. So check for a few past lives, just to see this give rise to this give rise to that. Especially when you examine the last thought moments, you realize that the mind is helpless. Always having a lot of it's as if like the life flash, your life flash before your eyes, and then you see a lot of karma, good and bad, helplessly. And they're always motivated by those attachments that we have. And so you understand this is the law of karma working, because it is at the last thought moment that determine at the next existence. Karma, they're good and bad. But if you're born as a human, you have the human set. It's like going to a restaurant, set menu, this set, that set, that set, you're a human set. So generally, human existence, the karma is good, okay? You think your karma is very bad, but you compare with animals, compare with ghosts, and we're all very good. And then, of course, human have its different quality of human lives. That's also related to karma. The Buddha taught, if you're somebody who is easily jealous, then this life you're not very influential. If you're somebody who is very generous, this life you're very wealthy. Okay, so all these will happen. But beyond that, you also start to see many other things, okay, like you have been, say maybe some of you are so lovey-dovey as a couple last life. This life, you are also lovey-dovey, okay? Or last time, you and your wife behave like siblings. This life, both of you are brothers. Okay? Or last life, you're a deva and then, whatever. Then this life, you're living as a human realm, but your mind is always thinking about something else, as if you're out of the world. Or last life, you're a dog. This life, you have a certain, maybe, behavior that is that's similar to an animal. Okay? So, and sometimes ghosts, maybe a few lives of ghosts. Then this life, when it is dark and quiet, you feel needy and maybe a bit depressed. Okay, so different. So you start to see all these conditions, this life, that condition, and all this is, there's so much of richness in the understanding of dependent origination. But the most important is to penetrate these 12 links and understand them as ultimate realities, so that we can penetrate first, second, third, and fourth noble truth. And in order to really do that, most of us need to make the experience really rich. So for each of these ultimate reality, we want to understand their characteristic, their function, their manifestation, and proximate cause, so that every time it rises and passes away, you feel like a whole life rise and pass away. It's very, very painful and very rich. I will rush a little bit now. It is 12. So by doing this, in terms of internal, all beings also, external, superior like devas, inferior like ghosts, like animals, gross like material phenomenon, subtle like mental phenomenon, gross like the bodies of animals and lower realms, subtle like the bodies of gods and Brahmas, past, present, and future. So you just see all these aggregates. Each particles, the moment they arise, they pass away. Each mind moments, they rise and pass away very fast. When the mind is very deep concentration, you can slow it down, and you can magnify the small particles. So that is how we see the aggregates past, present, future, and also the causal relationship between the past life and the present life, and even in this life, how they are interrelated. That's when we see the material phenomenon like a foam. There's nothing. It looks like a solid piece of styrofoam floating down Ganges River, but when you reach your leg, you just touch it. Oh, it's just a foam. The feeling is like bubble, arise and pass away. Pop, pop. So all of us chase after happiness, avoid unhappiness because of contact, this feeling, and then we have so much craving and attachment. And then it drives whatever we do, whether you are a big-time businessman or politician or a doctor or a husband or a wife or whatever, chasing after this bubble. And all of us living in the world cannot avoid perception. Everything is just perception, perception, perception. Like a mirage, it's just how you see only. It's not its ultimate reality, because perception arises and pass away. And then all the rest of the mental factors, they have got layers and layers. Ultimately, they are nothing. And the consciousness arises and pass away like a magician's trick. And as we continue like this, our insight will deepen. So first, we see that the mind and matter is different. Matter is particles, energies arise and pass away. Mind is whatever that take the matter as an object, that lean towards the matter, and is founded upon material phenomenon. You can separate the two, and then you start to see the cause and condition. You understand their causal link. It's like an insight. And then you see them in terms of aggregates, matter, feeling, perception, and so on, or the 12 ayatanas or the 18 dhatus. I'm sorry, I got a lot of material. I'm a bit rushing. May not be very clear. But yeah, I hope it helps some of you in the audience. Then you observe the rise and pass away of all these aggregates and their causes. Initially, there'll be a lot of wholesome mind, but there's a bit of attachment and a lot of light. What's important is that for all of these phenomenon, we focus on their impermanent, and the fact that they're always oppressed by this impermanent, we actually can feel the suffering involved, even in happiness, in wisdom, in wholesome minds. They are incessantly oppressed by impermanent, and there's no escape. And that is suffering. And then you start to see, actually what we call as a self is just a convention. There's nothing. The past didn't come into the present, didn't come into the future. It's just causal, but it's no continuity. Okay? The continuity is only a causal story, a causal relationship. But the material phenomenon from the past and the present phenomenon from present, there's no link. It's just a storyline. And then we get past that pride and that attachment, and we continue to see rise and fall, and then we focus on the disappearance, the dissolution, and then we have this insight of terror, danger, disenchantment. Like you don't feel aversion, but you just feel, enough. Okay? And then you feel the wish to be free. And then you reflect on all this, and you become equanimous, and continuously all phenomena arise and pass away like that. Mental, physical, past, present. Moment to moment, impermanent, and always oppressed. And the self is really just a convention. There's really nothing. And gradually, actually almost suddenly, you will see Nibbana. And that's when you understand when we say, Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanaiko. You can see that it's so obvious, okay, when you practice like that. And it is instant, okay? There's no time. If you just practice like that, you will see instantly. And the path leads to the fruit as if it is a one-way escalator. And the escalator is very fast down, okay? It's just like that. And there's no secret. No one is hiding anything. You just have to practice like that. And that's when you understand the true meaning of the quality of the Dhamma, and then the fruition knowledge. So these are the various insights according to the purification. Okay, I will skip this explanation because I think I am repeating myself. So these are all found in the suttas and also in the description of the Abhidhamma. So I'm sharing with you what I read and learned from the books, and also what I was taught by my teachers in terms of the meditation practice. And ultimately, we will understand the Four Noble Truths not in terms of the theory anymore. It is to really see that all the present moment is really like an illusion. Huh? The material phenomenon, the mental phenomenon arise and pass away based on what hits it. Hits the eye, hits the ear. And then they arise and pass away. And then we go and create stories and conceptions around it. And then we are always oppressed by this impermanent. And there's actually no one here and no one there. But yet, you cannot fake that you have no ignorance. The ignorance is there, like a shadow, unless you really, really penetrate. So the ignorance and the attachment are there, and then we are helplessly going through this. It is so, so lucky that we have this good fortune in this beginningless samsara to come across the teachings of the Buddha. Otherwise, we'll be chasing after the wrong thing, thinking that by doing certain rituals we'll be enlightened, or even by just letting go, nothing, don't even wear any clothes, or keep the hand up like that for years, we'll become enlightened. No, you will not. And by just practicing jhana until immaterial realms is already enlightened. It is not. Fortunately, we are so blessed that we have the enlightened Buddha teaching us and sharing us the way to really understand, so that the insight can mature to this state. And the mind is totally cooled. Okay. Sorry for a very heavy going talk. Yeah. And we are way past our time of 12 noon. Are there any questions?
Anyone got question? Please raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sounds like it's almost impossible to be enlightened. What should we concentrate on? Because it's so difficult.
Yeah.
So what is an easier way for this lifetime? Thank you.
So, there are a lot of people during the Buddha's time, when they hear just a few words from the Buddha, immediately they can have the faith. And then some of them, like Venerable Sariputta, heard from Venerable Asaji, all the causes the Buddha has taught, and also taught how to make an end to it. With that, he can become enlightened as a Sotapanna. How did people like that can happen? According to the teachings by the Buddha, all of us have beginningless past, just like Venerable Sariputta, They have molded their character for a long time, perfecting the various aspects of the mind, like morality, like generosity, like truthfulness, like loving kindness, equanimity, life after life. So when they come across the Buddha, immediately they can realize enlightenment. So even though I explain like this, it looks very difficult. But I have known of friends, they never go for retreat, just have some instruction at home and practice until the 4th jhana. Then when there's a moment, there was a chance that she could attend a retreat. Very soon, she can see material phenomenon and mental phenomenon very fast. And then with that, understanding dependent origination was very easy for her as well. And she's not the only one. So many of us here might have practiced a lot in the past. We may not be as sharp as Venerable Sariputta or Venerable Moggallana, but maybe for us, if we invest time in practicing, we can attain Nibbana. Also, some of us here, I don't know for sure, but maybe some of us here, when we practice Anapanasati, it's very easy to get into concentration. My own observation among friends is that when you attain to 1st jhana, the rest is very easy. 1st jhana, you go to 2nd jhana, 3rd, 4th, all very easy. Once you have the deep samadhi, material phenomenon is easy to see. People can see, pop, so many, And then the mental phenomenon, a bit difficult, but once you can see material phenomenon, mental phenomenon also very easy to see. So 1st jhana is maybe I would say along the whole path, this is probably the most difficult. And among attainment to the jhana, the 5 hindrances, the most difficult is restlessness. Restlessness, if you practice for a long time, it will come down. So if you can calm down the restlessness, you have a nimitta. Once you have a nimitta, attaining to 1st jhana is actually quite easy. It's just a matter of time and effort and sufficient letting go. So it is difficult, but actually it's relative. Some of us, maybe tomorrow we can be enlightened also.
Any others with questions? Please raise your hand. No? I have one from online. This sister asks, may I kindly ask, during meditation, what if the body starts shaking? What can it suggest? Thank you very much.
So when the body is shaking, what you can do is you can just let go, calm down. Too much energy, let go, calm down. And just be very relaxed. Like, it's okay and it's fine. And it is good, like that. Just stay with the breath. But sometimes it's still shaking. One trick is you focus on heaviness. For example, you can feel the heaviness of your hand. Then you feel the heaviness of the whole body. And the body will start to calm down. Then regain that mindfulness. If you're practicing on the breath, just stay with the breath again. And just be very, very chill. No go-getter. Sometimes when we are very strained, we get a lot of agitation.
Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much for your talk. It's just a thought that just came into my head, and I thought I asked the question so that I get it cleared. You were talking about causal links. So the cause and the cause here actually is just a stream, and there's really no link. And yet there is this thing. There's no beginning. How do you reconcile this thing? It's a cause, and yet there's no beginning.
Yes.
How do you reconcile this?
Maybe can I say that those who think that because there's a cause, there must be a first cause, can I say that that was already an assumption? So a lot of people cannot grapple with the idea that if they're all causes, right, there must be something that started. But if there's something that started, wouldn't there be something else that started it? So, but that is not easy to understand. It's like the whole universe. If I say that it's boundless, how can anything be boundless? In my experience, nothing is boundless. Even Singapore has a territory. But the universe, does it need to have a territory? That could be our assumption.
If I remember correctly, I think the Buddha didn't answer this question, but it's just something that came in my head, and I just, it was troubling me. So I thought, since you are here, I asked that question.
Yes.
But I believe the Buddha didn't even want to explain that question.
The Buddha talked about beginningless samsara. And dependent origination is to break our idea that there must be a creator. Because you assume there's a creator, so you believe there's a creator. But if you understand how phenomenon is like that, it is just dependently arising like that. There's no creation. There is a mechanism, the workings of a creation. Okay? And that's how we understand. But there's no creator. Yeah.
Any further questions? Anyone can raise their hand? No? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ng. Let's say sadhu 3 times.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ng, for this wonderful Dhamma talk. Yeah, and taking time to prepare all this material to share with us. Okay. Now we have come to the dedication of merits and closing homage. So in Anjali, okay.